We talked about this last week and the last week with friend. Topic that you brought up just last week was software engineering. How do you treat it, right? You're talking about whether it's a science or art or something else.
Yeah. So the topic or the discussion I've had with several engineers in management over the years is software engineering, and the question I've posed to them is it an art form
Right.
or is it a science? And the way that I've always framed it is like it can't be, but what would you classify it as, either A or B? And then we kind of went into, well, this is why I think of it. So if I were to ask you, we've talked about it briefly when we had a discussion. If you were to classify software engineering, what would it be? Would it be an art, not even, or a craft / science?
Right. So when you brought it up, I mean, and I had to think about it. I said, well, exactly this question that you asked right now is what would I classify it as? I don't know, because when I look at it, it says it's called engineering, right?
Mhm.
So most of the times it's under the science division of a university, for example. Now, lately, we have it where there is coding schools, boot camp. So to me, the boot camp, the coding schools is like, it's kind of like a technical schools, right? You go in there, you learn a skill, and you come out, you do the work for that. In the past, we've always heard that people say it's an art,
Yeah.
right? It's an art as to, well, why do they say that? And when I start thinking about that, it's just hey, it's an art because you have to do certain things. You have to be really good. It's like I don't know, a really nice paint of, stroke up the paint or something like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't strike me as an art, right? Because we are teaching it. There is some sort of a skills you need to learn. And then when you're on the job, you're learning on the job through, but there are things that you have to learn. There are standards in place where you learn how to do coding. The results may be different, but all those things can be learned, I guess. So I don't know where you fall it. Had a conversation the other day with somebody else, and they were talking about it's a technical craft, and that's the way that was put towards me. It's like, okay, well, it could be a craft. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's an art, and the reason why I think it's an art is I can only take my personal experiences with it. Like an artist, I see engineers, they're very proud about the code that they put together. The more complex the code, for some reason, and it depends on the type of coder, the more proud they are of it. It's like, oh, look how beautiful this is. Look at all the things that it does. And it may not be the complexity of the code itself, it may be the complexity of what it does.
So do you, as an artist, right? If as an artist, we will say, we will look at, in my mind, artist is like a painter, right? I've got a painting that I've beautifully put together. When I look at it, it's beautiful. Have we ever looked at code and says, it's beautiful? Like the code itself, we never look at it, right?
I have. I've had. There were many times where it was at 1:00 in the morning and I made code do. At the time, it was beautiful. It was like, step back, behold, look at all the stuff that it does.
You look at it as here's my coding, whoa, it's beautiful. But have you ever looked at somebody else's code and say, wow, it's beautiful?
No, and most of the times when I've looked at other people's code, it's like, wow, this is crap.
Right?
But that was the attitude that I had as an engineer. It was like, I wouldn't say it's crap. There is some pretty code that I had on there, but it was almost like that personal pride. It was weird.
So
there's that aspect of engineering.
So I think we get proud when what we produce do something. Right? That's an outcome of what we put together. It does.
Yeah.
It does something.
Yeah.
Right? It's not. It doesn't. So to me, it's not an art, or it's hard for me to put it as an art because we don't just say create this piece of code, and we plaster it on the wall and say, wow, look at it, it's beautiful. It doesn't do anything. other than it's beautiful.
So instead of looking at it that way, could we say that software engineers are like artists?
They're kind of like artists because at the end of the day, to me it's a skill. So if I say a developer, if I am a C# developer or Pascal, COBOL, or whatever language you do, but if I'm skilled in that one specific language, right, I can do a lot with that one language, regardless, because I am skilled at it, because I'm that good at it, right? So it's like a sushi chef. You give him a knife and the way they cut a fish. I mean, they're so skilled at it.
Yeah.
But then when we look at it, we say, well, there's almost like an art when he does it.
Yeah.
Right? There's this performance going on. He's performing as he's cutting and slicing it. So there's some aspect of it, but yet it's not quite there. So I don't know how to bring it. So it's not quite art. Is it science because it can be taught? I guess you can still teach art, because I know I've gone through places where I suck at art. I can't draw anything.
You and me both.
So one of the things that I had to do, one of the exams I had to do was to pass art, right? And I had to draw something. So there was this, you go to this class and there's a teacher that teach you how to draw, teach you how to paint, things that I can follow in steps by steps, right?
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, I could not produce anything today. If you ask me to draw, I'm not that good.
Yeah.
Right? But if I follow some steps, I could get that. Is that what coding is? I don't know.
So, going along the lines of the artist thing, art and skill, and I think as we were talking about it, it's tying together, and I want to get your take on it. So the reason why I'm so strong on like the art and artist is because of the attitude of a lot of engineers. Is an artist will create a painting, put it up, and I don't think they ever really once they're done, they're done. They create a final product. I don't revisit it. I'm off to create the next most amazing thing. And we as agile coaches and being in the agile space, we try to teach this whole thing of emergent design, and you can come back and change your code, and we can modify it along the way. Going to David Frank's talk of Elephant and the Rider, if not all engineers, but if most engineers take what they write as almost like a portrait, that it's like, I'm going to create something awesome. I'm going to not put it up on a wall, but I'm going to put it out there, and I know it's so good I don't have to revisit it again. Are we in the agile space asking these folks to do something that is counter to what is part of what they learn or part of what they do?
And definitely, I know what you're talking about, because I struggle with is that now we say coding is a team sport.
Yeah.
Right? But as an artist, you tend to work on it alone. You're an individual, right? You express things individual, and you could care less about what other people think. You do your stuff. So that aspect of it now kind of contradicts itself. Is if I look at teams that I've worked in, when we work as individual, yes, I can create stuff on my own, right? But with current state of things, in order to build something, you tend to work as a team. You tend to work with more than one person, right? So in that event, I mean, you just cannot do that. Because if we're artists, then you paint it one way, you may like blue, I may like red. And in the end, it's not blue or not red. Yeah. Right?
True.
So that's the struggle I have. And you talk about as an art, and I see that problem too. Today we have people that are, who maybe in their mind thinks that it's an art or feels like it's an art, so therefore they have this persona that they portray, the prima donnas.
Yeah.
Right? Because I am an artist, therefore, it's myself is, great. Everybody else sucks. Right? So you have this mentality, mine's better than yours.
Yeah.
Whereas
I'm an engineer, you're just a QA
person.
That's actually, that is almost like, I am an artist. I'm the greatest artist that there is. Those are the kinds of
things.
You're
the cleanup crew.
You're the guy that, exactly. That's the thing that's where I draw that comparison of I put myself in the same category. It's like we behave, we act we almost go about what we do as if we were artists. We're very proud about what we do, sometimes to our own detriment, I think. Well, actually, so we explored the artist side of things. So if we were to make an argument for it's a science or a craft, where do we begin?
I don't know. So this is one of those topics that I don't know where it stands. Does it matter? Somehow it kind of ties to how people feel, how they do work, and if we're trying to get people to work together as a team, and I think that's where it falls apart. I don't think that when I look at individuals that are working on the team, I don't think that it's in their mind that it's an art.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things I think we're used to working alone.
Yeah. Okay.
It might be something you just have to retrain, I guess, because we have coding schools today.
Mm-hmm.
Coding schools are like technical school,
Yeah.
right? So it's a technical skills that you acquire. May not be good at it.
True.
Now, if it's science, so I would say, okay, if it's a science, if we go all the way down to, you're doing software for a rocket, for plane. I mean, you're doing things like that are really scientific at that point. Then yeah, I could see that as being a science. So one of the arguments that people say that it's not a science because if it's science, the outcome will always be the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when I hear that, well, not true, because if I know how to build a car, I may not build the same car. I may build it slightly different because of things I put in play, right? And if I do everything exactly the same, sure enough, the outcome is the same. Coding is the same way. If I write the code exactly the same all the time, then my outcome is always the same.
Yeah.
So to me, it could be that. It could be a science thing. I don't think it's a science. I don't know what's important for the skills, I guess. What do you need to be good at? What skills do you need to learn? For example, as a kid today, if we want them to be a developer, what stuff do they need to learn and to be good at in order to become a developer?
Problem solving.
Problem solving.
You have to be able to problem solve.
Does math matter?
It really depends in the field that you're in.
So what does math teach you? So
Mm,
it dawned on me as I was talking to my daughter about math. I was teaching her math.
yeah.
Right? Math is not just following a formula, but it's the thinking, is the problem solving aspect of math.
Yeah.
That given a set of information, you have to figure out how to twist around and what formula to use.
Yeah.
Right? I think that in itself teaches us when you talk about problem solving skills that you need. I think maybe that's what it is.
Problem solving, math. I mean,
It's logic, right?
it is very much logic because if you're presented with, say, writing enterprise software, you're given a business problem. If things are being done the way that we work with or that we talk about, all you're given is a problem, and how do you solve it is up to the engineer, up to the engineering team.
So now you could turn it into a science, because based on science, in science, you have a hypothesis.
Yes.
And then you prove whether the hypothesis is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So in software engineering, we do the same thing too. We say, there's a hypothesis that this formula, this method will work. But we don't know. We will have to test it out,
Yep.
right? So that iteration has to come into play, that the spike story has to come out.
Yeah.
So then it becomes a science.
It's not just that, but I mean, looking at it this way, sometimes you even know what the end result is. So it takes you like to test-driven development. You know the end result, so it becomes like an algebraic question or a problem. You know where your end result is, or you know what the critical value is, but you're missing pieces in the middle. So that's where the code comes into play, and that's where they experiment. They're like, well, if I do this, does it give me this result?
Right.
No. Yeah. Try it again. No. Try it again. No. So that's one way that you can actually tie it with a science. A lot of times we do know what the end result is supposed to be. It's how do we get our code to get us to that end result?
Okay, so let me bring this, kind of tying this to see if we can end this here.
Yeah.
Why are we having this conversation about whether it's software is science, or why does it matter?
This is my theory on it, and it's been like boiling in here as we've been talking about it. I have a conviction that I believe that the individuals are artists. I believe that they have a certain pride. They go about the way they write their code as an art. But I think that the computer science, engineering, whatever you want to call it, it's a craft. And a craft is you work with an apprentice, you work with somebody who's a journeyman, you learn, you grow,
Right.
and then you go out there and you may join a community and work together. And in order to do a craft, you work as a group with folks. Whereas the individuals is an artist, which naturally tends to want to work alone. So what you have is you in organizations and enterprise software mostly you have this constant struggle where even in most, especially in the agile spaces, that we're trying to move enterprise software into a team event, a team activity. But traditionally, or the individuals in there approach it a lot differently. They look at it as, or they're approaching it as, I'm painting a portrait. Or it attracts folks who are mostly introverted and don't want to do work as a team, and they want to create intricate code and such. So I think there's a natural conflict.
That's a conflict right there, right?
Yes.
How do we resolve that? I mean, I struggle with that. I see, and we use the terms, oh, they're prima donnas.
Right.
And why is it? And having, that comes to somebody else, and we talk about it. Why is it? Is it generation based?
Yes.
We see a lot of the generation Y that's struggling with that maybe, or X.
I've seen some I think it goes across the board. There is some sort of a personal touch that an engineer puts on his or her own code that causes that kind of a conflict, that causes that kind of an uneasiness, that prima donna, I don't want people to see my code. I don't want people to critique my code.
So how do we get the best out of this? I mean, if a developer was listening to this, what do we want them to walk away with? We want them to be proud of their work, right?
Yes.
We want them to work. We believe that working as a team produces a better results.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want them to be complaining all the time, to be pre-noticed, because there's a business aspect to it, that there's an outcome that's expected from them working on it. They can't just go in a tunnel in a cave and hide for 6 months and show nothing, right? So we don't want that. What else is there?
As far as encouraging them
Yeah.
or in going and taking the industry, I think that the industry is taking slow steps in the direction of turning it into a team sport, if we want to call it that.
Yeah.
You go to most schools now, they're doing group activities. They're working in groups, kind of teaching people
Right.
how to do that, how to build software as a group, leverage the strengths of others. I think it starts, for me, I think it starts in the classrooms. And I honestly think that the open source community also plays a huge role in that, because in open source, there is no hiding your code. Everybody in the world sees the
And that's
code.
the difference right there, right? I guess if you're working on open source, in my mind, I think about it's a hobby.
Yeah.
You're having fun with it, you're just learning at the same time. But then when it comes to work, then there's a different thing because you're being paid for it.
Yeah.
So the higher skilled you feel you are, the more you're expected to be paid.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I don't think this is a problem that'll be solved anytime soon. I think that as the generations go by and as far as like it being in the industry, in the enterprise, we're 20 years into it? It's still in its infancy. So who the heck knows what the conversation is going to be in the next 20 years? Everybody will be looking back at this and be like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. I can't believe they were struggling with that back then. So.
Yeah. All right, so this is one of the topics that definitely, there is no solution that we can think of, but it is a hot topic that's out there. I see it all the time. If you go Google it, you would see it too. There is an impact to how individuals think, whether it's art or science, that is kind of the natural conflict that Charles talked about with Agile.
Yeah.
So we would love to hear what you guys think. If you are watching this, this is kind of our wrap up at this point.
Yeah.
Drop us a comment, good, bad. Either way, we'll love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yes. Keep them coming.
All right, so let's wrap this up. This is Master Asian Core.
And C-Rod.
Bye.
Till the next time.